Hello, hello. Do you hear me? We have another amazing presentation. The kind of presentation that happens once in many years, maybe in decades. So you are the lucky ones to be here listening to it, because this is a presentation that was designed especially to honor the 25 years of Boom. And you know, the Boom team is a team of teams. And there's people who comes and goes, and people who stay a bit longer than others, and there's some people that actually stay for a long time. And the people that are here with us today are some of those people that are here since the very beginning. So these are the people that have been holding some fundamental pillars of this festival. Of course, there's many others, but tonight we will hear from the people that are involved with the design of the festival, with the choices around structures, with the ideas that are behind those choices. So we have François Baudson, who's involved in the management of the dance temple. So please welcome with a warm clap of hands, François, to talk about architecture with intention over the 25 years of Boom. Thank you.
Hello. When I think about a temple, I have this vision of symmetrical pattern. I have more this influence than actually more organic. There is a lot of beautiful manifestation of organic temple, but the way I related to it, it's to the mandala since the beginning, since before 2002. So I can maybe show a bit more about that. And yet before the center core of alchemy was an octagonal center core. Here you can see actually through the fabric, it's the reuse of the structure of 2016. And it shows really well how we can work through this mandala from one year to the other, reuse the structure and create a totally different feeling. As you could see, the structure before and its core, and where it went actually in 2018, with always the same sense of creating a symmetrical pattern there, you know. So I will move some stuff about Mandala. But I don't know if it's a really good way to work like this, because I have normally a keynote as a presentation. And if I have to go back, you're going to have to see a lot of slides, you know, then we have been talking a little bit about it. So I will pass just few things and just go for what we need. Yeah, maybe you keep building the other, and I will go look for just mandala, and like this, it's going to be more easy. So this, for example, is 2002. It's the first influence on from a mandala pattern on the dance floor of 2002. So it start more or less like that. It was a square mandala. We could not really complete it fully, because actually we work with at that time with a material we call ripstop, and we didn't know at that time that this material was actually a kite material, and was a material who really retain wind. So it means if you have wind under the fabric, it just lifts up. So we had a lot of issue with that fabric, so we could actually not really complete the mandala. So we set up a part of it, mandala on itself, to avoid to have a strong lift up, because the structure was really weak. It was made with really weak cabling, 3 mil cable, really thin pole. Everything was done as a first test of three-dimensional structure. And so, but the influence of the mandala itself was really, you could really sense it, you know. The dance floor on itself as a structure, he had some kind of reminder, he had a certain flow, and it was already much easy to deal, and it was I will say there was a lot of dark corners still in 2002, but there was a sense of organization there into the dance temple itself. So this was actually the first mandala we apply. Okay, those are really old pictures. To see then, yes, actually we work with a center core scaffold and those panel of ripstop. We had to limit it as maximum, you know, to avoid the lifting. So this was mainly the result at the end. We had a really light structure, and a really light mandala. But on itself, we had a center core. At that time, we had some experience, 2002 and 2004, actually of a stage center to the dance floor itself. Was actually interesting, but really difficult on creating a surround sound, and really difficult for have a DJ set in the middle of a surround sound, and also to set up a quality sound, because depending from the type of pattern, symmetrical pattern you use, for example, on a number 4, you could have a 4-stack sound system surround. It will work with not too much problem of a delay. But for example, in 2004, we use so here, for example, you was asking about the mandala, but it's clear then Carl Jung talk about it, then the plan of the mandala in architecture is another image of the cosmos, a sacred space connected by its center to the other world. Each building, sacred or secular, built on the plane of a mandala is a projection of the archetypal image of the unconscious on the outside world. The city, the fortress, or the temple become symbol of the psychic unit, and it this way exert a specific influence on the human being who enter or live in this space. So I think it's something who has been already really sensed, you know. Mandala exerts a certain type, creates a certain type of field of energy, and it also helps on relating to a higher consciousness. But it also supports on the sense of oneness. So I think it's why actually mandala is well used in this case, because it works. So dance floor of 2004, for example, it's a geodesic dome, like a really large-scale geodesic dome. It was a 35-meter diameter geodesic dome with a height of 19 meters. The mandala was a mandala composed with a lycra, and we enhance actually the geometry of a dome with pentagonal geometry, but also has a lot of equilateral triangle in it. And let's say the use of the dome, why? Because it was like a space who also has its own energy field. So it's actually a dome. It's not just a dome, it's actually a sphere. So you have half of the dome, in this case, set up on the Earth, deposed on the Earth, but actually the energy field of the dome, it's a sphere. You have the other half of the dome underground, for example. So it is a full content energy field, a geodesic dome. And it's an interesting structure to work with. It was, again, a structure who had a center stage, complicated in this case because we work with a number 5 with a geodesic dome and based on a pentagonal shape, and we use a sound system with actually a 4-stack, and it was a huge delay, so you could sense actually the relationship from sound throw and the sound field and the energy field of the dome itself, and there was a huge conflict there because you could not actually set up a quality sound there. You will have to use a 5-pound sound if you wanted to have a quality sound there, who was actually at that time not possible. You know, we didn't have the tech spec for that. So, yeah, this is a bit the vision of it. So we also set up this dome, as you see, has been kind of a rule from Turan to this land, to the boom land. The actual land is then always we align the structure with the cardinal point, but also sunset and sunrise. So in this case, with the geodic dome, we had this pentagonal window really aligned to in this case, sunrise, because it was the other side of the Turan, it's the other side of the barrage. And also we create in this case, we had, wait, I need to show you, this is deco, okay, it's not happening, I don't have slide of that here, but we had on the peninsula, just the peninsula you see at the end of the pictures, with entering into the dam itself, we set up an octahedral seat, like an octahedral structure, and the idea was actually to create like a channeling between the pentagon, we had the top pentagon open also, and to create a circulation of energy between the peninsula and this cultural octahedral seat and and the dome itself. And from what I sensed in 2004, it was a really nice energy field. It was a really nice dance floor. It was really good energy. So for me, it was working, the interaction between geometry. It was working really well. So this is, okay, light tech, for example. It's a technique who was, at that time, coming from Israel. It was a phosphorescent thread we use, low tension. So we also enhanced the geometry of the dome and trying to enhance this mixed geometry of pentagon, hexagon, and equilateral triangle, you know. I think the vision of Mandala on large structure, it's, okay, one side, it's the sense of oneness and this powerful energy field, and this also capability to connect with a higher consciousness. I think it's really important. But also what is also really important is for the venue to realize, to get in touch with geometry, to get in touch, because we all based on a certain type of mesh, made of perspective or geometry or geometrical perspective. And I think it's really interesting for people to feel constantly the sense of geometry around them, you know. So for example, this structure you are sitting here, it's based on the golden spiral. So all the outer pole are following the spiral, or golden number spiral. All the rig itself, all the guideline popping out are following the same pattern, you know. The center column, where all the rig comes from and aligned to the outer pole, is following this pattern of the spiral. And it's, in a way, always invite the venue to be part of this reality of what are we made from. We are made from geometrical pattern. We are made from that, you know. We are made from the golden number. Every section of our bodies, from bones to segmentation of our body, from arm to proportion of our body, it's related to golden number. You know, the universe is related to golden number. So there is a lot of, I think it's good to always apply those information and always use them and remind always, then this is what we are. And I think it does really work. So this is 2004. So I would say 2006, for example, it's a bamboo structure made from a Balian team who came here straight from Bali, like a large team with Balinese architecture, Amir, and they create several structures. They create the structure of the dance temple, especially with this really high tower. The rest was made, it was an octagonal shape, was made of bamboo composite column, the surrounding rigging cable, and this really tall tower. They also built at that time the convention area, was actually what became the liminal, and the structure of what was before the garden, the chill out. But I felt then in 2006, the mandala itself, the cover, the fabric cover of the dance floor was not complete, because actually there was one panel who was totally different than the other. And for me, the sense of mandala was not really there. There was the structure as a sense, but there was something into the setup who was not complete. So that was my sense, and I felt then actually the behavior was different. So I could really sense then, if you apply really a certain standard of quality working with mandala, you need, or three-dimensional mandala, you really need to go to the perfection side. You need to really finalize, tune as further you can your work, you know. And then the space itself, it's much, you know, it's much it's working. It's much better. It's working much better. So this was the feeling of it inside. In 2008, somebody really said in 2008 was his favorite place and the most integrated place. Nothing to do with the mandala. It was actually a composition of fabric with some vertical layer of fabric also, different material from Serrapiera to lycra. really weak structure, so we had to face a lot of problematic due to structure on that dance floor. It was the same in 2002. So it was a bit of the moment of starting to have to change setup of structure and, let's say, engineering design, because up to there, let's say up to 2008, we didn't have any to follow any engineering spec. So it means then any type of design proposed will be accepted, what could be made on site with not having to follow any engineering signature. Yeah. So from there on, we went to Dance Temple 2010, and I will say then, yeah, as I mentioned early, 2010, we really felt, so first it was the opening ceremony, the first opening ceremony. It was the first boom we made in this land, and it was the new setup, so we choose the Dance Temple spot. Actually slightly more where now is the playground. It was slightly offset than it is now. And it was really strong because in 2010, we worked with the Mandala again, a number, you're gonna see here, let's say an hexagonal mandala, but with a number 4. So there was 4 portal to try to get to this vision of, okay, we need to set up cardinal point. We need to place this mandala from north to south and east to west, for the reason that actually, if you see it now, the evolution of the Dance Temple, you have one gate with the north gate, the north portal, let's say, it's on the direction of the being filled and sacred fire. The other one on the south side, you're actually opening to the whole venue of the festival. It's all the following line of the festival. The east portal, it's up to the hill, facing the hill, and it's actually the sunrise. And the west portal, it's the sunset, is the lake itself. And so I try to incorporate that here into this hexagonal pattern, like a number 4, to keep this this sense of cardinal position. So this dance floor was already a bit of evolution, because we start to work with different type of structure. Again, we use bamboo because, as Arthur mentioned early, every project will get manifest here into the land, use certain material, and those material we always try to reuse, upcycle, but we also try to learn from the experience of the material and develop new technique. So one of the things we came really strong in 2010 after the use of bamboo early in 2006 with the Balinian team, it's then we could really reinforce the use of bamboo for that edition. So we work with Bamboo DNA, with an American crew, and Gerard, with a really good crew on bamboo, and we try to develop a sense of structure with bamboo and how we could actually create a reinforced structure to bamboo. So we developed this idea of composite column made of bamboo. They are usually made of 7 bamboo, 1 center core, and then 6 bamboo around, and they are lashed with a rope. It can be a natural raffia or a synthetic raffia, with slightly more easy to tense, And so as you can see, the nuts on the column, yeah? And it's actually make really dense column. They have a lot of strength, So those column, we already made column up to 12 meter with a lot of strength, So they can pull out rig. Well, I would say rig, cable tension structure, yeah? So we went through many different type of try. That edition was, let's say, the beginning of a new era of structure in Boom, where actually we start to develop some type of metal connector. We start to use slink work. We try many things. Let's say, before 2010, we applied techniques as we accept a project and the project goes on and we make it happen. But the majority of the time, the technique was not properly set, There was not a proper engineering technique or design beside this. And I think from 2010, this slowly has changed. so yes, that's dance floor 2010. I will say also then from 2010, it's also the first year we start to do what we are calling sound integration. So when I talk about sound integration, it means, and at that time we used to work with Function One, and we try to apply the sound as an integrated sound with the stage face, and this was actually the start of it. Yeah. So 2012, it's actually a really pure mandala. It's a number 7. There's been also a bit of a process of evolution into the number, as we start by a number 4, then we went to a number 5, then there's this gap, let's say, between 2004 and 2008, where it's a bit more random, and then from 2010 we went to the next level with a number 6, and 2012 we went to the next with a number 7. Yeah. So this is again a bit more evolution on RIC. We're still using composite column. We have a base tower of scaffold. We use a lots of push-up. This was with Dulap. It's an American team. We work in collaboration on that dance floor. So it's another evolution of applying mandala with no too much obstruction. In that case, it's a center column. We dropped this idea of a center column on a mandala because it's actually clock a little bit the idea of a chimney. A mandala should be breathing. It should be a structure who has an in and out. So it's good for the field. It's good for the audience. Then actually the field breathes. So I'm trying to avoid now as maximum to have the center core clock. And so that's why we are opening now more and more or to core who are wider enough to receive public and breathe it in itself. And this was, okay, our last test on that, but it was a really beautiful dance floor, especially with the dragon, those huge dragon floating into the rig itself. It's also the first structure, I will say, then we went to a complex technical rigging. It's challenging rigging because, as you can imagine, this is a larger space. It's not wider as it is now. As we talked earlier about the size of the venue, we can say then this is a 65-meter diameter, and we are now more or less at 100 by 80 to 90. You know, this is more or less the size we are using now from east portal to west portal. When I talk about east portal, it's the topper in front of the bar and the restaurant you have there, and the west portal is the one on the back of the backstage. That time slightly short on size, so the rigging was quite well, it was a really challenging rig because we are still on a time where actually everything is downsized a little bit. We are using small section of cable, no more than 6 mil cable. We are floating there, lots of push-up. We don't have proper anchoring in the ground yet. We are using stake and a simple come-along system to tension our guideline. So actually this is let's say the last dance floor who was somewhere, who came through but has a lot of sense of weakness. Yeah. So yeah, I will say that this is show clearly what we were talking before. It's caring, the watering of the public. It's something quite important. It started in 2010 and went over since then. This is still 2012. These nice pagodes with this number 7. This year we are using still lycra, who is actually a much easy material to use for let's say tension structure because it has a high level of stretch, who makes us easy because it makes the chains to not dimension, to be too crisp, too precise on the dimensioning and the patterning of the fabric itself. It's not the case anymore because we're not using anymore lycra. We are using polyester, who has a maximum, let's say, sometime of 2.5 to 3.5% stretch. So it becomes much more demanding on the structure itself because we need to be really precise on the structure, and all the study of the structure, it means a three-dimensional study of the structure, need to be accurate because the patterning of the fabric has to match perfectly. So we are taking much more risk from structure to fabric than it was in the past. this is still lycra, so, and then a really nice kind of a wood cladding on the tips itself. It was really beautifully made with a slice of wood into cable, who makes this beautiful finishing of the tips, you know. I would say, okay, Dance Temple 2014, it's for sure the Sagrada Familia. It was a strange thing because when Arthur came with the idea of the Sagrada Familia, I felt, wow, the Sagrada Familia, it's a basilic, so it's kind of a strong idea to bring the basilic in the boomland, you know, when we are actually talking about timelessness, spirituality, of oneness, and it's not necessarily the way culture or religion on planet Earth, it's not set up on the same level. So I was a bit surprised. Then the Sagrada came, and then I went to visit the Sagrada in Barcelona because I was not there before. And when I entered the Sagrada, I was like, wow, what is that about? You know, this is kind of heretic also at the same time. I had this feeling of this beautiful geometry, this incredible architecture, this sense of oneness you could feel there, the high of it, this proportion, and the direction to the sky, you know, it was really amazing. And the light of the center core, this impressive golden light into the center core. And okay, there I was directly in touch and touched by it, and I felt, okay, so let's try to work it out and see. And again, we work. That year I work in collaboration with Bamboo DNA, with Gérard, because we decided again to work with bamboo and to, as Arthur was explaining, creating this contrast from a structure with all made of stone and curving stone, and it's really heavy duty structure, to a light Sagrada Familia made of bamboo, and see also what could happen here with such a vision of transposing a temple with well established to the boomland. And it actually went to a really, so the first study of this is actually the original mapping, the whole mapping of Gaudi of the Sagrada, with the altar, the core altar, all the main tower of the Sagrada. And I tried to incorporate from the beginning how we could work with this and creating a dance floor by using some of his mapping. And so this was the first idea. We went through it. Then we worked to a much different vision of it, how to incorporate and how to use it through geometry also, and see how we could do this. So this also we drop it, and we kept evolving to how we could create tower. So this again, those tower are made of bamboo with some metal ring to reinforce and create those belly. And so the project kept evolving, and it went through, let's say, this like a number 4 to keep this sense of portal. The altar, the yellow or orangey yellow altar, was on the east side, on the burst, on the sunrise, stage on the sunset, and then you had right and left on the north and south. You had the Venus, those made by Popper, those beautiful sculpture of foam. And then you had this vault, all this sense of vault of the Sagrada. We tried to incorporate that too in the center core, this cross center core. Actually, the Sagrada Familia is based on a number 4. It's a really clear mapping of the Sagrada. And so it kept evolving. That's the rendering we went through with the vault itself, all the tower, were 8. Technical plan, let's say, more on the rig side. So I will say also 2014, it's a big evolution of the dance floor in Boom, because it's the first year we start to really acknowledge the fact that we had to work out of gravity. Why? Because we start to work with structure was really high, much challenging, and we had also to deliver an engineering signature. So we have engineering spec for the first year. So to just say the dance floor, the dance temple has on 100 meter, 4 meters out of level. So usually on a design, on a three-dimensional design, you're going to work on a 0 level first, like a football pitch, yeah? So you're going to set up, you're going to design a structure, and then you are facing a 3 meter out of level, or to accommodate the 0 level structure to actually a 4 meter out of level. And so this has been, I think, the big turn into boom structure. It's the same for all our structure. They are 0 level. So they are accommodating out of level, but canopy are 0 level. So you do not have any issue of gravity. So you don't have a structure where like this. You have a structure with 0 level, and the compensation comes from the setup of foundation, or actually concrete ballast. So it's ballast, then we can bear in earths, level, and then we mount structure from them. So what happens is then those ballast, we work like this. We have an implementation on site, so it means we have a topography on site, who gives us the precise, let's say, area topography, and then we have a 0 level structure, and we adapt, we compensate a plus and minus. So it means then, for example, a structure with 0 level should come to a higher point of the length if we wanted to keep the 0. It means then everything with 0, it's everything who goes from 0 to the complete structure. Everything below to follow the structure need to be hot. Or oppositely, if you will start from the lower point, you will get a lower structure at the end of it. So this has a big influence into the design now, because every structure needs to be synced with the reality of the land. I would say in alchemy it's much easier because we're not facing such a strong out of level, average 2 meter. In alchemy the difference is we are facing a little groove. So on both sides of the forest and now side of the bar and the flea market starting, the land is raising up. So we're trying to accommodate the structure the best into this kind of water line we have, who makes this small valley, you know. So this, I would say, 2014, the dance temple, we are facing a different situation. We are facing a really level land on the stage side. Means I choose the spot because I need absolutely a sound, a level sound. What is really important into the quality of sound is that your sound is level. You don't have like a big difference into the length, so your sound will be set up level, but the public itself will be at a different level. It could be lower from right to left. That's not good. You are looking actually for a sound phase with the most level as possible. Doesn't matter, then you get 4 meter out of level from the stage, or from stage it's actually a bit above 3. From stage to east portal we get 3.5 meter out of level. But this on such a distance, because we are thinking about top portal to front face, we think about, let's say, 75 meter of dance floor. 75 meter with 3 meter of level, you experience, all of you, it's really danceable. It's really okay. You're not feeling it too much. You don't feel the problem of level, you know, but it's there. But we have to accommodate it. So what happened on those structures, and it did start in the Sagrada, it's actually, you have to deal with this. So you have to deal in certain aspect with a really high stage, because the length goes down, and a lower entrance. In the case of the Sagrada, for example, as you can see on the technical plan, we didn't have still the line array technique. We're still using function one. So function one means stack sound system. So it's not a hang system, it's a sound system with stack, though connected to ground. Yeah. So we didn't have this problematic of a really high stage. So in this case, we could play really well by having accommodate to this out of level and having still a phase stage not over proportion. From now, it's a totally different approach, because we are working on a really, really high stage due to line array, due to the fact that we need high for the sound throw. Yeah. So this is some vision of craning. Also, first year we start to use crane, and since then, let's say structure has evolved constantly And we have constantly the use of big machine now because structure need to be lifted up. Stage phase. So 2013 or 14 also, the first introduction of sound integration. So when I say sound integration, it means a bass stack sound integration. So that's what you can see now in 22 also, is then all the bass bin are in the front of stage. It's made on a stack platform. It's a timber platform filled with sand, wet, covered with ply. And so it means the bass are really grounded. So they are really efficient, they are really crisp. And so this was a success since 2014. From function 1 to DNB, we kept this sense, you know. But as you can see, function 1 was still a stack sound. So this is a little example of what happened with the sound integration. When I'm talking about a timber platform filled with sand and wet. Yeah. So as you can see, bamboo, this year through engineering, bamboo and rigging, complex bamboo structure. We also try to keep the ground as neat as possible to the construction, which is not always easy. As you can see, also respect the nature environment as you have it now. Also, some trees are into the structure. We are really prudent about anchoring because from now on we are using manta ray, so we are using a technique of anchoring with we are pushing a kind of a manta ray, aluminium manta ray into the ground itself. When we pull the cable, we tense the manta ray goes on a certain angle, usually 45 degrees, the alignment of our guideline. We beat it in with a shaft and a machine, and then when we pull it out, you know, it tenses itself because it comes perpendicular and lock itself into the ground. So that's the technique we are using now. When we have interaction with tree and tree roots, we are placing block. As you can see on the dance temple, you have block at the end, concrete block. They are for that, because you have a surround of tree. Altar vision, like incorporating the sense of the Sagrada into a structure. The vault, the Venus on portal. So 2016, I will have to speed up a little bit, but I want to give you a bit of an overview of structure and how this evolved. Here I show you that because you understand really well what I'm talking about. Here you can really see the setup of the ballast. And the setup of the ballast, it's actually what defines. The ceiling, it's level. The canopy, it's level. But the ballast show you clearly the implementation on site. So you see the difference of level from the top ballast to the lower ballast, yeah? And so the structure accommodate actually the out of level of the ground implementation, but the ceiling, it's level. So first structure also really challenging because it's the first structure we built with a mix of what we call Vigish laminates. It's laminate beams. It's actually the best for the moment because it's a sustainable timber in the sense that it's a glue timber. So it means then it's a timber which doesn't ask you to cut large trunk. It's slice of timber glued together on overlap layering. It worked good for us. All the structure, the semi or long-term structure we are doing now using that technique, laminate beams, and we are using actually metal connector now more and more. As Alchemy, you can really see it. All those metal connector, three-dimensional metal connector are really good because they are helpful on the sense of we have an engineering design and we need to respect certain spec. So they work well. The combination works really well, and they works really well with ballast foundation. Easy. We fix our connector with a composite resin. We drill. We composite resin thread bar connector. So it's a really good system for us to create base foundation. The majority of those structures are mixed of now a part of the dense temple with a mixed structure much more based on the metal, means large truss box of 80, metal truss box of 80, and IP beams and rig. Those structure 2006, it's much more laminate beams, metal connector and rigging. It's the case of Alchemy now 22. So large belly, the first also linear structure with an open field, complete open field, no obstruction. Not a full success in a way of the sounds, because actually function one fucked it up a bit, and our relationship went down from that moment, because they had a big ego and they didn't realize then actually we kill ours to create them a structure who was actually dedicated to sound. Because for sure a structure without obstruction is a structure with better for sound. Obstruction are a problem for sound, because you need to turn around, you need to find way, you need to use delay, you need to compensate to network. You can control all the cone in new technology with the case of DNB, but still obstruction are what they are. So it was dedicated to that. We had a really strong sound integration. This is a show example, metal connector composite, assembling wood and metal connector and rigging. That's what we mainly use. Really challenging structure, because as you can see, everything is with gravity. So all the double segment, I was fully in gravity. So they was in a certain angle facing inward, just all by rigging outward, and with a really complex ceiling full of push-up. As you can see here, the setup of it, yeah. So it was a really challenging structure, but it was a really good learning curves how to use those techniques. In the sand, I think always nice to remind, we talked early about the caring and the sand. This show really a nice vision of the work and keeping the public outer up to the last minute. So sound integration again, we drop it with function one. And why? Because actually we made this asymmetric sound stack, bass sound stack with the taller structure. Those are actually medium high. And we try our best to, support their vision and create all this sound integration, and it was not great. And our relationship end up there, and that's why we start with DNB. But detail, as you can see them in Alchemy, video platform, video box. We try to incorporate also structure and technique more and more. As you can see in Alchemy, the line array itself, it's completely hanging from the structure. So I think this is show clearly the evolution of structure and matching architecture. So 2018, just wrap up a little bit. I don't have, sadly, vision of the construction of 22, but you had a little bit of the movie of Alchemy, and I think it's sufficient to show you, where we are heading. I will say that in 2018, as 2000, you can see it here, I think it shows you clearly. 2018 as 2022, it's what I call mixed structure. It's not my favorite because they are dangerous. I will be really honest here. They are difficult structure because they are a mix of several techniques. In this case, 2018, a lot of scaffold and a lot of rigging. So scaffold to create the height of it and rigidity of stage and hanging pound, center core, some kind of bracing, and then rigging to open up a full mesh, a tension mesh. We can create a sense of ceiling and the mandala itself. Yeah, I'm really looking to get away from mixed structure. I will say then the big things of to show you. Like for example, setup of column. You look here, the difference of height and elevation into ballast. You can see. So every column needs to be designed facing a certain height of ballast. So it is complicated when we use a mixed structure like scaffold of metal, because it's not as flexible than actually working with timber and metal connector, where actually you dimension your timber beams facing the reality of elevation and implementation side. The next thing is then actually it's those mixed structure, as is the case of this structure now of the dance temple, are always mixed of material. So you have a metal foundation, ballast foundation, you have a scaffold, box truss in this case, heavy duty IP beams and disc for the rigging disc. As you can see in the dance temple, if you look at the ceiling, if you look around, I kept the ceiling open, the center core open for you to see as the push-up, the center core, the side sail push-up, the complexity and of the rig itself. It showed clearly that those structures are I like the rig of them, but they are difficult structure because you mix materials. So you have to find techniques to mix material. Not all material match well together. So this is the part who comes a bit more complicated, and I found a bit more critical on the way of structure and engineering. This is showing you clearly what you have now also on it's the sound integration. So all the bass bin goes into this front face, yeah, of the stage, and the stage is on the back of it. Line array, first year of line array, we hang the sound. It's not the sound people, we hang the sound, also the rigging people, because actually one thing we are doing, well, I'm heading this team for quite some years now, and I've been doing lots of rig, lots of structure, and I hang the song myself, because as I hang the trust in alchemy, for example, and all the light trust, because one thing of the structure you have to realize, then they are risky structure. They are structure who are high up. The dance table is 24, alchemy it's 19, you know, it's in the air, it needs to be safe. The venue can be 10,000, 15, 20,000 as opening ceremony. So there is a responsibility there, you know, so it needs to be really well applied. So for example, line array, we hang it, we support the sound people. Same with the light. Why? Because actually everything who is hang on structure, who has critical structure with certain spec of engineering, we also need to finalize and go up to the technique to be sure that everything is good. So everything has backup, and that's the way it works. Mandala, again, and okay, the reality still on cladding and construction. Mandala when it's done. We have already some vision, but I don't have them into this presentation. Sadly, I stopped to work like really last minute, and I had no time to do nothing, because I could have shown you stuff of 22 already. A bit of the reality of the project as it was in 2018. And okay, with the public itself, yeah. So I will say then 2018 and 2022 on the dance floor, it's quite a similar pattern. Many people have been saying or commenting, oh, it's quite the same on the structural aspect of it. Yes, it's the same, but it's much evolved on the technical part of it. It means then we managed to have a core techniques spec of this structure working much better on engineering. It's been a kind of a process, because due to the pandemic, for example, the cost of metal was really high. So initially that structure of 22 was planned, let's say, for 22 last minute a year early, was made only of box truss. You cannot see them now because they are all clad by the deco of Meoma. But the reality is then everything was built on a black box truss of 80. And it could not happen because the cost of metal. So we had to change, and we had to use some IP beams to make all the horizontal bridge, what makes the structure more complicated. We had to create all those push-up of IP beams and disc for setup of rigging. So at the end, the process of that structure has been really intense too, you know, and demanding on techniques. Yeah, and I would say then, for me, is as we talk, I'm try to give you a little bit of a feeling of structure itself. I could go much deeper into the intention. We went a little bit fast on this, and we talk a little bit more about the being, and talk about the trends itself, the kinetic trends, and what's the relationship between those space, the kinetic trends, the relation between kinetic, potential, kinetic, all these works, the fact that all of us, we dance. Its kinetic potential is much more the place itself, the environment, and the storage. It store energy, then kinetic again, and it goes. And we could talk about lots of things about the being. What I will really say then, it's what we talk early. It's then the vision of a future boom. It's really to try to. We are going in the direction of alchemy on structure of the garden. We are looking for really integrate structure. We are looking of structure who are part of the lens. So means when they don't have fabric, when they don't have deco, or this beautiful plasma lab deco, this incredible stage, you know, they don't have sound, they don't have technique, they are just nice timber structure being there. We just need to do maintenance of them. It means treat the wood, treat the connector, take care of the foundation itself, and they are really part of the lens, let's say. For sure, when booms come, they come bright with strong color codes. There's lots of changing, so the nature comes as separate a little bit. But when Boom is not here, those structures are part of the nature here. They are totally integrated. As you can see in the garden, it's completely integrated. The mix of wood and serapiera goes really well with the tree bush around it. So yeah, what else? I think it's time, no? I imagine I'm getting to the time. So if you have few questions, maybe I can answer a few questions.
Yeah, we still have half an hour.
Half an hour, no?
So okay.
But we start a bit early, so I have a bit more time, or?
Yeah. You've got. We're still good.
Okay.
And also for people standing around or if they don't have space, there's quite a lot of space here. So know that you can also come in closer.
Yes. So the structure that this year I found the most beautiful when it comes to design is the gardens. I found it very, very beautiful. But my question is, when it comes to design and engineering, how do you? What's the challenges or the difference between a structure with pillars like the dance temple this year and a structure with maybe no pillars like Alchemist Circle this year or the dance temple in 2016?
Yeah. Could you put back the film of alchemy, because it shows really well. I don't know where we are, but in alchemy, I will say you don't see it now, but you will see. You see the table sometime. You have a big table. I say, garden, for example. You start by the garden. Garden on engineering spec really low spec. Not much to worry about. It's low format structure. Interconnect tree. What the end mesh makes a bit of a timber mesh of interconnect tree, hexagonal tree. Soft rig. It's not a really complex rig to support this and to dance outward. It's not a complicated structure. It's beautiful on itself, beautiful design. I would say beautiful integration. That's what I see most me. It's like the integration itself into the place. You know, the high. It's not. Let's say. We call the chill out before used to be many times like a really nice high tips. You know, like bamboo DNA, like 2 years in a row. You know, and I think this year. The garden is beautiful because it's on the level of the tree, the level of the bush, so it disappeared there. It's a beautiful structure. But on engineering spec, really, really low spec. But it's not the case of alchemy, for example, because alchemy, as you can see it, has no inner core, nothing to hold that structure, apart the fact then you have two different style of structure there. You have certain arch who have what I will call a V push-up. So the V push-up, it's actually the second connector inward with a long tips who makes this V push-up, and the short one will get to the belly. Yeah. So this is the difference. So this structure was made like that. You have 12 arches, and you have 2 portals. So you have the right and left portal, in this case, where the artery, and you have 2 veins on the ceiling. Those 2 portals, you want see one there, the other one is on the other side, cannot have guideline. So you cannot have interferences with what I call guideline. It's steel cable going from structure to ground. Yeah. So you cannot have that. What you feel, for example, in the dance temple and the surrounding of alchemy, you have cable guideline all around. I was talking about the manta ray and the type of anchoring. So where you have portal, you cannot have guidelines. So I had to add, I did the engineering design of that structure. So the design, let's say the vision of that structure as a heart came from this collaboration, and a really nice collaboration from an architect office from Lisbon. Really, really good, really nice sensing. And then they proposed the sensing they had and a format, a shape, and I had to do an engineering design through it and a mounting sequence. So the thing about alchemy, it's a structure, then you have to design with the vision of mounting it. You cannot separate the design and the mounting, also it doesn't go up. It's simple like that. It's not possible because you have gravity and you have certain type of obstruction also. So alchemy, for example, has these 2 portals. Those portals cannot have guideline because it's public flow. So what happened is then where we don't have guideline, we have actually V push-up. So those V push-up makes then actually we have only the 4 topper segment to depose. You know, we have this V push-up who structure the 3 first segment. As you can see here, I can move, no problem. You have first segment, second, third segment, and there's this V push-up, yeah? Why? Because you have a portal there, as you have a portal there, yeah? So from that time, that moment, here you cannot have guideline, the structure cannot have the main guideline coming out because you are obstruction from public. So then I start to design those V push-up, who was really helpful. And then doing this design, I start to realize that actually the number 6, the middle of the belly, the higher arch, could also receive this V push-up because it will help us on the mounting sequence. And then I adapt also the stage itself, because the stage needs a sound integration. We need to hang the line array, and those V push-up was perfect for that because we could use that triple connector from the V push-up and hang the line array itself. So let's say that was the first setup design. Let's say we need to build this, and it's to stand it, and we have some kind of limitation. Limitation are portal, stage face, and how are we gonna build this? So this structure has been built on a certain way. So the beginning of the movie, you saw it a bit in the beginning, we have been working only on the belly. When I talk about the belly, I will talk about this part, this line, yeah? That's the first line of the segment with the bracing. So this line is the belly, it's on itself. If you set up the beams with the right connector and you set up the bracing, the belly takes shape on itself because all the connectors are designed and the V-gauge are cut on a certain angle, then actually the belly takes shape. And it has rigidity already. And we had already some V from the arch 3, arch 4, arch 6, and arch 9. So we had already a consistent belly. The next step on this, it was actually to lift up this pair. Why this pair? Because we could easily have the taller push-up with provisory guideline, right and left and backward, and we could actually drop those 2 segments, bridge them, and have a rigid structure already. Then we could do that both sides, and we could brace already, provisory bracing. So we will have actually already something more rigid and standing without gravity. So we could do that right and left, you know, both sides, and then drop what I call the 4 segment. The 4 segment are those one. 4 segment. So how to do that? It's actually I had this idea, and I'm using a crane with a 60-meter crane. It's a really nice Portuguese operator. We work with him for many years, and the guy is really nice because he's really precise, highly precise, and this is really important with this job. But also he go to the flow. He's patient. A crane operator need to be patient because it takes time to lift, it takes time to set up, yeah? And he has all this quality, so it's great. And what I was feeling is then, okay, I have a level structure because all my foundation are level, my canopy is level. It means all the structure has been based on this ground implementation, from a 0 to ground implementation, so all my wood, it's cut, so it means then, okay, the lengths of the single pole are different because for sure they are facing difference of height due to the length, because we don't want to have the ballast completely out of the ground, so we bear the ballast. And so if I have a level structure, what's the best technique to build it and to socket in? Because as you can imagine, socket 4 segment with connector up to 19 meter, it's 1 arch of 19 meter, then you're gonna lift up in once. It's a little bit demanding. So the thing is then I work on creating a table. It would be nice actually, can we go a little bit to this movie, to the VLC, because you have some vision of the table, and yeah, just move a little bit to see what we get, because you have vision of the table somewhere. Yeah, there, but keep going a bit. Arch there, you have 1 hanging, as you can see. 4 segment, keep going a bit. Let's see what we're getting. Now all the arch are in place. So a bit before, we see what we get to get some arch, lifting of arch. Yeah, there we go. Okay, here we go. So Like this, you can really understand the process, because this is really important if you want to understand how this is built. So we built table of 20 meter by 10, made of similar Vigish, level table, spot level. You know, it's really essential. Spot level table, but also accessible table. You can enter with a forklift, you can enter with machine, you can do things. And so we mount actually all the segments who come together. It can be 1V setup, or it can be 2 segments in gravity on the top of the first segment, or it can be 4 segment top arches. We built everything on the table. Actually, we realized then on one table 20 by 10, we could build nearly half of a structure. It was quite amazing, because at the end, always the table was full. And so the technique is then, if you have a level table, you have a level crane, and you're looking for a level canopy, and all your base, your legs, your foundation are level, and you're working on a 0 level, so you want everything level. So having a level table with a level crane, you lift up actually your jig level. So it means then when you lift up your piece from the table, the technique is then they are lay horizontal flat, but you want to bring them vertical, and then you want to lift them. You don't want to deforce them. So the way we do it is then we have a spread bar, a nice triangulation for lifting, which is quite important, you know, and then depending from the arch, we have different point of anchoring. So we prepare the beams already with point of anchoring. When I talk about point of anchoring, is those one, yeah, point of anchoring. We have a lower tensioning, who gives us a chance to close it a bit if it's needs. We have host, small come along on every line of the spread bar. So here, you can regulate this, you can regulate here, you can regulate here. So it means you can play a little bit, lift up the arch or close in the arch, and you can socket in. Because the thing is then, we always socket into connector like this. So you have a U connector on the top, so you can bring actually the whole arches and socket in. So working on a level jig, it's the key. It's what makes success. You know, there is no other way. Imagine if you're working completely out of level on the ground. First, you're going to deforce completely the setup of the arch. It means you're going to try to push beams into connector, and the whole things will be already quite deforced. You're not going to have the standard of quality you're looking. And when you're going to lift with the crane, you're going to lift out of level, so you're going to always force. You're going to force something. In this case, you are lifting smoothly. You bring it up in the air, it's already level, and it's done. And everything on that structure has been made like that, always level or angle lifting. So all the segments, so we can go back a little bit to some vision of the core. Yeah, for example, here, you see, so those segments, when you set them up, imagine they are fully into gravity. So we had to use like a provisory ballast with some long guideline to keep the segment in the air. The time we're going to socket in the arch, the full arch. So both sides, you see here, as we create a skin made of several segments, double segment, full into gravity. Because here we have a full arch, it's the sound integration arch, it's stage side, yeah. We have a full arch with V push-up, yeah. And you have the number 6, same, V push-up, yeah. And between them, you have the number 7 and the number 8. They have nothing. They're just hanging there in the air with gravity. They are heavy, you know. And so we have to use ballast outward. As you can see here, there's one here. Use ballast there, outward with guideline to keep them open before the moment we are actually bringing the arch with the crane and drop it them. And from the moment we drop it into those stopper connector, in those one, and we bridge with the 4 segment, already all interconnect, then when it's bolt, it's rigid. And when it's brace, it creates a mesh, you get rigidity. So for engineering spec, this structure is not just timber and metal connector, it's also actually rigging. You have like some tensioning ring, horizontal tensioning ring, you have a lots of cross bracing, you have several guidelines to pulled a bit outward, you know, but that's actually our basically engineering spec to guarantee safety, you know, because you could keep that structure nearly out of rigging. When it's complete, it's a mesh. It's a total mesh, it's complete, it doesn't have much, it's static, doesn't have much movement. And that's what I was talking early. It's then, you can keep running a little bit. I was talking early, this is the future, because we are looking for structure who are actually safe as possible, and easy to mount, dismantle if it's needed, and easy to reuse. And this type of structure has this potential. This structure could be used in the future with a totally different style of covering. It could be used with a rigid covering. It can be used with fabric. Can be used in many ways. And I think this is clearly the future of the type of structure we are working with. Yeah. So yeah, more question, because my answers are so long. Then
yes. Thank you very much for showing all the structures. We went very technical right now, I think, and it's very nice to hear everything. But in the beginning, you were talking a lot about space, how space can transform people, and how architecture is putting up settings. And one main thing you mentioned always is the mandala that you're trying to build in the structures. And I was wondering, for people who are like building smaller structures or smaller architectural sites, what are for you the important things to integrate in a structure so a structure can bring transformation besides from the mandala?
I will say it's a set of filter and layer. I think you need to apply. I think the most important thing in total structure, from my experience, is first the devotion. I think this is what makes the whole. As we call them temple, then we have deeply to think about devotion. It's like amount of energy, amount of devotion you give to the structure, you give to the place, to the end, to the field itself, and is the way it's gonna actually ripple. It's like this devotion will ripple inevitably. So I think this is the first filter to apply. And we are experimenting that a lot here. So I think it's it's leading by sample. It's like really working hard with the team, really, because it ripple, because the team can feel. In the beginning, it's sometimes a bit difficult to apply certain rule like devotion. Not for everybody, it means what's all about, where you're going to apply devotion into a structure itself. But yeah, it comes with many different aspects. It first I would say visualizing. So really visualizing the structure, develop this sense of visualizing where you're heading to, because from the moment you can see, you can sense it, then you can actually really put your full energy into it. So I'm always trying to help the whole or the team to really visualize. And but I think for me devotion is essential. But I think it's a lot about caring. I see really structure as being. As what we were talking early is then for me it's all this process from designing it already. From the moment the project enter, from the sense of a form, and then you have to do an engineering design and think about material. From there on, already you have to sense and devotion take over, And then the whole process, it's about detail, caring for detail, caring for the flow, caring also for regeneration. It means a healthy team can flow better than a team who is weak and tired. It's about how to support a team by let's say sharing knowledge, like be an open book. You don't design something and then you are on your own in front of a screen for an hour. Actually, alchemy took me 3 months because it's a lot of connector, and all those connectors are different. And so you're sitting there on your own, and you're building this in your head and on a virtual plate, and then it needs to come to life. And it's not going to come to life just because you have been working in front of a screen for months. So it comes to life because actually you're sharing the project, you open the project to the whole, you know, and it's really about that. I feel it's really about giving the opportunity for whole to enhance their capability into the project, because it ripple, you know, it's all energies goes into a project will ripple to the final, you know, and the final is actually when the public enter, the space turns to be a living being, but only when the public enter. All the process before, it's, let's say, a pile up, an accumulation of energy. It's something and this is really important. I always see it as a manifestation mesh. It's like a living mesh. Every energy you put into this mesh, it creates itself and it becomes more flexible. It becomes more playful. It has more opportunity to take shape, to take life. And I think I see structure exactly the same way, you know. And when I enter the dance floor and I go for some watering or checking just what happened, the behavior, or is the public, the temperature, I always feel that, you know, the life of the dance floor, the life of the place itself. So I think, I will say then, this sense of devotion, and this is something which is really strong into the resident team and the long-term team who are actually building mainly those structure. We have a lot of people coming later into the process, but we have also a core team who come years after years and start and gain experience through them. It's really important to help them to feel that, because from the moment they feel it, they can support the process, you know, and they can bring their own energy into the process. And I hope the public is feeling that, this sense of care, you know. It's
Are we feeling it?
And it can be really overwhelming also, you know. As you can imagine, we get really tired at the end, you know, because this process of Boom this year, we felt that it will be some kind of easier because we had a 2 years production, because we built the structure of Alchemy last summer. But the dance floor was really demanding. The dance temple was really demanding. Overlap of techniques, really demanding, challenging rig, really tall rig, lots of cable, and for me it was really overwhelming, this Boom. Until yesterday I was like, really, you don't sleep so much, you work hard, the heat is strong, you're always in a boom lift, always working in the high, a lot of machinery. At the end we have up to 10 boom lifts in the same space to try to, you know, to finish our job. But one thing it's clear, it's then no stress. One thing you can feel, and I hope you also feel, the structure are not filled by stress. There is no stress involved into those structure. This is also essential key of success, you know. That's why we're not just working on a mandala or working on a sacred pattern or working on a linear, symmetrical pattern or working on anything, you know. It's not sufficient, you know. I think it's the type of energy you put into the work sequence and the flow of the work. And what I repeat, regeneration is essential, you know. Like time for yourself, you know, time to regenerate, you know, to bring the best into the work itself, you know. And I think this is also a really strong process of Boom, you know. It's in the amount of dedication and devotion the team is putting into the work itself. I'm sure you always all feel it somewhere, you know. And I think those are key of success for this type of project, you know.
There was a question from the back, and I can no longer find the person, but I remember the question. It was, what is the role of numerology and special numbers in designing some of the stages?
Depends the type of structure. For example, Liminal is on a you could call on a golden number spiral, or Fibonacci, a golden number spiral. I will not say that the numerology has an important part of it, but the precision it is of the spiral itself, so the positioning of it, and so the sequence is important. Let's say numerology, for me, it's important to follow a sense of number, as I will say, for example, on the Mandala, if I will start with a number 4 with Earths, I will follow up with 5, 6, 7, 8. I will go to the process. But on this day, I think it comes for me more as working on the design, working on a screen, developing a structure, I will find some kind of similar number appearing. You could say, oh, it's kind of a coincidence, but actually for me, there is many moments into the design part. For example, the dance temple, I work on Rhino for maybe 9 weeks on the project to accommodate all the different technique together, up to the fabric, dimensioning and layout of the fabric itself before they did the color code and pattern. And I could find through the structure many times number appearing, similar number, and I never see them as coincidence. I actually try to constantly sense through the process. If I feel then there is a similar number appearing, I sense then, yeah, it's meant to happen. There is something good there, you know. It showed that we are on the good path, you know. I'm trying to see it more like that than applying just specific rule of numerology, for example, because they don't make sense so much from the moment you are building large structure for venue. In this case, then you have a lot to respect, a lot of you have limitation, inevitably. You have limitation of space, you have limitation of length, of implementation, of elevation. You have you have engineering limitations, so you need to be also flexible in a way. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Okay, hold on.
Hello. Thank you. Hello. Yes, thank you very much. This was very interesting. I'm really fascinated as an engineer as well, also with the level of detail you're going to. You were mentioning, that you are more and more starting to reuse elements, reuse the structure. Some of these things become semi-permanent. What are your plans kind of towards the future? I see that you want to be able to apply different visuals onto the same structure, but what about, for example, like walking structures or something like that as the sun gets stronger? Like, are you thinking more of a integrated semi-permanent structure, or still like stage by stage or like place by place?
Now, for the moment, we are looking at stage by stage. Let's say semi-permanent, as Arthur was mentioning. I didn't know that alchemy could go to 4 edition, but I'm pleased to hear that, because I think it's really the key for future. It's to have long-term structure. Doesn't mean then they turn to be boring, because we actually, as you say, we can evolve them. As structure, as life structure, we can make them evolve. And for example, for alchemy, I'm seeing then this type of structure could be a really interesting potential of generating energy. For example, I see a way to evolve structure also by creating energy, photovoltaic, for example, changing type of ceiling, you know, mixed of material, use maybe more rigid material techniques instead of always fabric. So I see that as a future potential. Nowadays also, there's still really the aspect that we wanted to have a sense of surprise. And it's really important, I think, into the regeneration of the field itself. Then it's not a duplicate, you know. So the structure, the core skeleton, I think can be reused just by changing the type of cover, the type of deco we involve, lights. But I like the fact that structure are more resident on site. So as I was explaining, they are part of the nature land, because I live here. I have a house here just on the back of the dance temple, so it's kind of a crazy space, but I live here. I have a house here. And I like to be here through the year, and you will be impressed by the amount of wildlife this land has, and the winter, the incredible contrast between summer, strong summer and winter. Winter can be super wet, you know, intense rain. The dam is completely full, you know, up to the dance floor, up to the stage of the dance floor, the water come. So there is a big difference, and so structure are completely different at that time. You know, they are quite integrated, and you have to maintain them, take care for them. So this is also an aspect of long-term structure. Is then how does the structure survive in the harsh condition of the summer to the winter, knowing that foundation can be sensitive to water line, to heavy rain. So for example, alchemy or liminal, where you are here, you cannot enter with a machine until really later, because it's really soft ground, after lots of rain it's really soft. Alchemy, same story, the water channel down in this valley, we have, as Arthur was saying, to do some drainage around the field to try to contain a little bit the sand too, because everything gets flushed away. So also this is an aspect of long-term structure, is then how can we actually keep those structure in life, keep them in shape, and reuse them. So yeah.
Hello. I would like to know, how do you start by sketching a project? Do you sketch? Do you do a model? Is there a link with the year? Is there the shape? The shape represents something that happened in this period? So yeah, how do you start to have an idea?
Yeah, in the case of alchemy, Arthur talked a little bit about it in the beginning. It was like a collaborative platform was set up from the beginning, and so with several of us as core team and resident team, and then some external actor at that time, who was like a group of architects from Lisbon. And we start this process, and then after some time, this vision of the art came through, and from there on there was a shape. There was a vision of a shape, and so then it's nice. Actually, I realized with time now that I prefer to work like that. I like the idea that, there is a shape coming with a vision, and then I can sense the shape and start to tune it up and make an engineering design through it. It's more where I stand, because I like to think about sequence of mounting sequence and things like that. For the dance temple, it was the deco team who had a bit of a vision of what they wanted to create. I think it's quite related to 2018 colonnade system. And so, because we need a project who was like a between project, it's not the final project of the dance temple, because it was not feasibly possible financially speaking. We have a project for the dance temple which exists already. It's a final project, went through engineering, but engineering expect too high a bit, so I want to review it. And this also, it's a collaboration with a group of architects from Porto. And I realized that I like much better to work like that, in collaboration with vision. Some people have vision, they want to express a design, sensing a design, and then I can work through applying technique to it. And so sometimes I like to go from scratch. It's nice, but I sense my position more into that, like working, adapting a vision and creating a structure out of it with realistic in this condition, in the condition of the land, with the material we experiment already in the past, sometimes new, but I'm realizing also that now we went through, I think, a good setup of techniques. So also when you start the sketching of it, you have actually the knowledge already of the material you can use, and that helps a lot too, because for example, in this case, then base ballast foundation, metal connector, Vigish, and rigging and Mantare are working really well together, and so it can help you a lot to flow through this vision and makes an engineering design through it. And so this is the same vision for the future dance temple. We should stay also for few edition. It's apply the same format. Yeah, but it's a process. He's right. You have to visualize. It's always the same. If you can visualize the structure on site, it happens. It comes.
We have time for one more. So anybody? All right.
Hello, thank you. I have to. Okay, now it's working. Yeah. Hello, how are you? I wanted to ask you a question. Are you familiar with biogeometry forms? Have you ever heard about biogeometry, architecture forms?
Yeah, we are.
Are you thinking about applying them to create like structures which are harmonizing the space as well?
Yeah, it's totally possible. I will say then, for example, I sense that the garden is already on that direction. From my point of view, I think hexagonal tree, it seems for me really a nice way to look at it, you know. So I think a lot of stuff can come in the future. But yeah, we are aware and we are in touch with that. But as I said just before, it's like I think it's not just up to us to decide what and how. It's up to what collaborative platform sends and what comes, and we can make it happen or not. In this case, the future of the structure and the structure existing in the land already and the future, it's really a collaborative platform. So it's not about us just to decide what will come and what technique will be applied, what type of sensing will be applied, and you will just be patient, and future will show you. You know, that's what I would say. Like the future dance floor, it's all about that. You know, the Anthropocene brought a lot of that. You know, and then how can we create new era of structure here? You know, and this is the start. So it will come.
Okay, so maybe this was the last question, and also this was a beautiful ending with the vision of the future.
Yeah.
And I would really like to thank François personally, because this is the first time he comes to speak in Liminal Village. I always believed this would be a presentation that would make many people happy to have a deeper look and a deeper understanding of the kind of work and the amount of work that goes behind the building of these structures over the year. So thank you very much, François, for taking the time,
Thank you.
for believing that this was going to be extremely interesting. And yeah, big round of applause again for François
Thank you.
and for the whole team that put this together.